Good morning, everyone. My name is Todd Cochrane, and you are listening to or watching the Saturday Morning Tech Show. And of course, I encourage you to get over to geeknewscentral.com and check out all the stuff that we've got on the website. Of course, you can check out my twice weekly podcast as well, that's produced every Monday and Thursday, released every Tuesday and Friday morning. And I've got my two co hosts with me this morning. Up on top is Jeffrey Powers from geekazine.com. Jeffrey, good morning.
Good morning.
And your audio is absolutely perfect. And on the bottom row, and it's Rob will have to switch you up sometimes. I don't know how you feel like being on bottom half the time, but we got Rob Greenlee from Zoom. Rob, good morning.
That's that's all right. I don't mind being down there. That's fine.
Well, I tell you, it's been a week or 2 weeks since we did one of these. Last Saturday, I was in cold Chicago. Actually, I was flying. Actually, I was in Chicago on Saturday and then flying back to Honolulu on Monday. But lots been going on, lots to talk about. And how you guys been?
Cold.
Doing fantastic.
So, did you get your car yet, Rob?
No, I did get some word last week that I'm going to get it in May. So they are running about, based on what they told me, they're running about a month and a half to 2 months behind on their deliveries that they promised. So the Nissan Leaf, sometime in May, I'm hoping it's in the early part of May. But I did kind of post some stuff on Twitter and Facebook and stuff, and also on the Nissan Facebook page about a little bit of I'm a little not as happy as I probably should be in buying one of these cars because it's just been such a long process. I mean, I first started thinking about getting this car like a year and a half ago. So it's been quite a journey of of steps that you have to go through. I mean, you have to find out if your garage is capable of handling a 220 charger unit, and they have to come out and do an assessment. You have to go through all of these kind of steps on the Nissan website to find out if you're you know ready for having an electric car. And so I've jumped through all those hoops, and I'm just waiting for the car to show up now.
Right. Well, I tell you, it's I'm excited for you to get it, but boy, I guess we're gonna have to wait a while. So
Yeah,
now,
May's a few months out. Yeah.
now, Jeffrey, why are you like in the middle of like where it's super cold? I know, and the Madison's not ever cold, but you went from cold to like real cold.
Well, no, I went south, so it has to be a couple degrees
Oh,
warmer.
okay.
I'm actually in Dubuque, Iowa right now.
Dubuque.
My Dubuque, exactly. My band, Trailer Kings, plays 4 or 5 times a year down in the Mystique Casino in Dubuque, Iowa. So we are down here for a weekend engagement. We have it's pretty fun time. They have a comedian usually before we play. This time it's a guy by the name of Jerry Grossman, who's a really interesting musician comedian. He can pull a whole ton of old tunes just straight out and play it, and he uses that in his comedy routine. So it's a great time down in Mystique Casino. We get to play a couple of slots and a couple of tables and play a few music, so we can make money, and then we
It's
pretty
so
much
no,
waste it.
yeah. So you gamble everything away that you've earned. So that's funny.
But
Well,
it's fun, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
and let's see here. I got a lot of stuff stacked up here. Did you guys watch the? Of course, we're going to talk about the whole Nokia thing here in a minute, Rob. I'm sure you've got some good insight there. But did you guys see my announcement yesterday about our extending RSS with some new elements? Did you guys see that?
No, I didn't. I actually missed that.
Oh boy.
No, I just saw the help for iTunes thing.
Yeah, we've you guys will have to go over it. I put the link up either. It was in both on my Twitter page, and it was up on the mailing list, and I'll have to resend this to you. But basically, what we are going to be doing with the next rendition of PowerPress is introducing some new elements, and we've made our namespace declaration, and we've submitted it to Feed Validator to hopefully get it so that when people start using these, their feeds won't be invalid. But just give you a few hints on what we're doing here is it's actually going to be an element. So it's not going to, of course, mess with really the base RSS, but you guys will kind of get the idea of what we're doing here. It's going to be like, here's one of the tags, raw voice, semicolon rating, raw voice, semicolon live embed, raw voice, semicolon flash live stream, raw voice, semicolon HTTP live stream, raw voice, semicolon shoutcast live stream, raw voice, semicolon frequency, raw voice, semicolon location. And we've got poster, ISHD. We got some embed stuff as well. So we're really excited to bring this on to the space, largely because we need to move forward. And without these tags, we couldn't. And I think it's going to be cool to be able to put all this data in there. And if you guys get a little bit of a think about it for a second, what do you know, I know you haven't had time to read the whole doc or even hardly digest this all, but any thoughts?
Well, I guess one thought is, I mean, from your guys' perspective, what are you trying to accomplish by adding these tags? I mean, and then what's your thought about getting various platforms to adopt them?
Well, the challenge will be getting other platforms to adopt them, but you know, the main thing that we found was that we really needed to be able to have this data readily accessible in people's feeds because people are doing so much stuff now, especially
Yeah.
media creators are. You know, you look at here right now, we're live streaming, okay? No one, there's no way to capture what someone's live stream data is if they want to put it on a website somewhere.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
they're unless you go to their web, go to their page and find it and dig it out, and there's really no way to to automatically suck that in. And rating systems, we're moving into, we've talked about this many times here on the show, where we're in the OTT space,
Hmm.
and we have to pass an actual rating. And if we don't have that rating, we can't. So this is going to give us the ability to capture some of that data. We're hoping, of course, the people we work with are going to be the people that are going to be using this. The big challenge will be to see if the folks at Feed Validator will make sure they throw it in their system, so that basically we don't get people complaining about invalid feeds. But we've made it such that it's not going to interfere. We've tested it with all the different intake systems, and no one's choking on it so far. So it's we'll see how it goes. But those that'll adopt will, those that won't. I think once people read through and look at the elements, I think they're going to be like, wow, why didn't we think of this? And we'll see. We'll see how the community reacts. So far, the response has been very, very positive for those that um, have actually read through the full doc.
Well, Todd, I think, I mean, it's certainly good to make some progress on these things because I think it does make sense to try and pull all these elements kind of into one feed more and more. And, I'm certainly anxious to see, that specs documents, and I'll definitely share that with our folks. So as we, make plans for future things
Right.
that we're going to do with the podcast area, that we take those things into consideration as options.
Yeah, we've actually had it published for about 6 months, but we really didn't advertise it.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, and we just didn't advertise it because we were, still contemplating the full execution of it. And with the new version of PowerPress being able to support it, I thought, well, we better get off the can here and talk about this thing. But I'll send you guys the link. It's over on the Raw
Okay.
Voice website.
That'd be
One
great.
thing, one thing I found that I've never heard of before, and either I have completely missed this, or I guess I missed it. Now, back when we first started doing new media, there was this service that you could seed a media file. You could go to it, you could upload it, they would do the seeding, and it worked about half the time. But did you guys know there's services out there now that do nothing? They're a seeding service. Have you guys heard about this?
Mm-mm.
I'll let you look at
So when
here's
you say
No.
seeding, what is that?
well for BitTorrent. So if you
Oh, I
upload,
see. Saying. Okay.
Yeah, if you upload, here's one of the hosts. If you upload a media file to this,
Mhm.
um, let me look at here, see if I can find pricing. I'll go to the main page. If you go to this thing, they give you like, for example, for $24 a month, they give you 500 gigs of disk space, 100 meg service, unlimited bandwidth,
Mhm.
all for 24.95, and it's basically it's got an interface where you can seed a file into a BitTorrent tracker. You know, that's a big problem is
Yeah.
who wants to use their home bandwidth for that?
Yeah.
And they've got some super seeds where you can actually get a gigabit connection for $64 a month, up to a terabyte of disk space. And while I'm sure a lot of people are using these things for nefarious reasons, um, oh, I think it's, you know, more I thought about it, I was like, man, I wish this was around 5 years ago, and we made it able to have gotten more people on board on getting new media distributed um, by BitTorrent. But the thing that excites me about this is that the BitTorrent folks themselves are working on a streaming protocol that will use a standard BitTorrent client to watch streaming video. And I thought, oh, this could prove interesting over time.
Yeah, this might be the way to go when it comes to the BitTorrent of the future. I always said that if somebody could actually put a wrangle on the BitTorrent, it'll become a very useful item. And I'm assuming that a system like this has some sort of policy saying, "Hey, if you decide to put up something that is copyrighted, then we're going to take you down, and you're going to lose your yearly fee, and you won't be able to use our BitTorrent service." So I think this is a great idea.
You know, I just, you know, I guess these are pretty popular now, and they've been up for a while. So, you know, it's you know, kind of a surpriser to me. But the reason I got turned on to it is I saw an article about some announcement made by the BBC where they were taking 170 some sites down, and one of the guys said, "Oh, I got a $4 seed box and pulled all the media into it, and made it available via BitTorrent." I'm like, "What is a seed box?" You know, and this was in this blog article, like it was just matter of fact, and I was like, "I don't know what a seed box is," so um, now you guys know.
So this sounds like a cloud service for BitTorrent is what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, it's exactly what it is. And so, you know, who knows? I guess it's one of these things where we're gonna find out how,
Yeah.
you know, how well it works. I'm gonna just get one and do some testing. And I used to make my media available via BitTorrent, but no one was ever using it. I had like 20 users or something like that. And actually, there was a guy that had a website at one time. Can't even think what the name of it was, but or used to be, but um, anyway, that's not here nor there. Let's go on into old school stuff. Hey, I want to talk just a little bit about been some acquisitions here recently. We saw Huffington Post get bought by AOL, $315 million, 300 million in cash. We've talking about stuff going on with a variety of companies, and the conversation has started to come up. And I talked about this a lot about in my last show, but I want your guys' opinion. What is the, you know, well, what some background in this is what happened when Huffington Post got bought was a number of their high, basically their unpaid bloggers who were well known, well followed on the website. Some of those folks started saying, "Hey, you know, hello, I helped you get here. Do I get anything of this 300 million? Do I get a few bucks? You gonna throw me a grand or something?" Now, the question I have for you guys is if you have people in your community, you got Huffington Post, and they have 3,000 bloggers that contribute to the website. 900 of them are, I guess, people on staff, and then, of course, I'm sure that's a loose word there because I'm sure many of them are just independent contractors that write, but the other 2,100 don't get paid a dime. So for Huffington Post, and you look at, or just let's just use Geek News Central. If Geek News Central someday was gotten to the point where it it got big enough where it become an acquisition target, that would be the day. But it would be great if it did. Um, would I, what would the if I had laid out this incentive as audience members of my site saying, hey, if we go public, I'm going to reward all you guys. Um, what do you guys just thought on rewarding those that help you get there?
Well, first of
Well,
all, if anyone, one of those 2,100 bloggers want to come over to Geekazine and do some blogging, I'm more than welcome to accept them. But it falls on that same line of the cup of coffee that you talk about with the podcasters. It's like you're giving them a false hope. I about 6 months ago, I was on a website that was promising pretty much the same thing. Hey, yeah, blog for us now, and then when we get all big and popular, then you'll have you'll be compensated back. But after about a month and a half worth of working with them, their model seemed to have fallen through, and then all of a sudden, now the website pretty much sits dormant, and it's a real big risk, and I'm just kind of wondering if their payback model means that you're going to get free swag from companies to review, and if that's the case, then that's really not payment at all. That's just free stuff.
Rob, what do you think about rewarding those that help you get big?
well, I think that I mean, I think on the surface it's a good idea, but I wonder about just like what Jeff was saying about setting expectations that may not happen. I think what you probably need to do is select, a smaller group of people that you know are going to be around,
Yep.
uh, and then don't make, a promise like in a contract or something like that. But it's just something you tell them if something happens. And then if you do sell, I mean, as long as you have all your users registered
Right.
in your database, you can do whatever you want to at that point. But just making promises about stuff like that, I think, is risky.
Yeah, I know it's risky, but here they are post haste, and 300 million bucks, and I'm sure some of that's going to go into operations, and or I would assume it would. I don't know, but if they're
Yeah.
being rolled up into the AOL arm, I'm sure some people have got some bank accounts have gotten much faster.
Hmm.
Um, but I don't know. I just think it's an interesting. Obviously that's the risk people have of contributing to a site where they're not getting compensation. And I had talked about on my show on how my blogging costs last month were a little over $2,000 for the bloggers. And it was a big month for us from a posting standpoint because they helped me get the CES content out. But still, on an average, I'll spend 500-600 bucks a month on payments to the bloggers at GNC. So they're helping the site grow, and we really don't have any clause in there for, they're just just writers at this point. But you just wonder at some point, do you, then again, what happens when a person you set up these quote unquote qualification standards? You have to post this much for this long, and you have to do this much, and you vest. Well, usually when people vest, then they say, well, I don't have to do anything. I'm vested. I can leave. And unless you put some sort of continuing clause in there,
Yeah.
there's no, if they get the money and run, it doesn't help you at all. So,
Mhm.
there's that whole genre to work with as well, that whole thought process. So, yeah, it's tricky. It really is. I forgot to switch me back here. Left Rob up on the stage. So,
I can get it can get messy pretty quickly
yeah,
if things don't go the positive route, right?
yeah.
If they go the positive route, everybody's happy and everybody gets rewarded. But if things don't work out the way your promises lead to, I think it puts you in a difficult position.
Yeah, puts you in a
On
difficult
the
legal
on
position
the
too.
other on the other hand, you got 1,200. What was it? 1,200 semi-paid bloggers over Huffington Post. You get into those situations like we saw last year with TechCrunch and Daniel, where it's like all of a sudden you're finding that somebody's trying to get more out of the system than what they're supposed to be getting.
Yeah,
So
Yeah.
I'm
I don't know.
getting.
The promises are there, and then when the bottom line comes that you have to pay your rent for the month and you don't have any money, you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, I'm getting a little bit of noise back from something. I'll check that here in a second. But anyway, I just thought it would be an interesting discussion point. I'm getting ready to launch a new show at GNC. I've been talking with the host. It's gonna be a gadget show. I'm really excited about it. The guy is seems to be the perfect match. We're gonna be doing a pilot. So I've been putting together the agreement. And when you say the word contract, it scares people. But it's one of those situations where I have to have something in place, because if I don't, while the ideas sound good and you're all friends and everything is great, and what happens when you're not married anymore and you're divorced? You got to
Yeah.
have some outline, and
Hmm.
so I've been working. I was trying to say I think I can get this down in 2 pages, and it's up, three, and that's not even before the lawyer get his hands on it to wordsmith his stuff in. So it's and there's so many different things you can cover. And I think we've seen in the past with certain different organizations signing shows, it can be very contentious, and it's in a process that you don't want to be contentious. You actually want it to be fair, and have a good working relationship with someone. It sucks to have to go through the whole legal bit before you launch a show, just because you're thinking of the potential of, okay, if this gets big, what do we do? And if this thing
Hmm.
sucks, what do we do? So there's
Welcome
definitely
to business. Yeah.
even if it's middle of the road and it does great, and then 1 year down, the guy says, I've had enough, I'm done, I want to pull the plug and take the show with me. And I'd be like, whoa, Nelly, you've got 10,000 people watching your show every episode. It's not time to pull the plug, it's time to double down. And so it's yeah, it can be challenges, but I'll let you guys know how that process goes.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Let me
Good luck with that. Yeah.
Let's talk about Nokia and Microsoft and Windows 7. So you guys all excited over there?
Oh yeah, definitely. That's a that's a big thing for us. No question about it. And I'm very very hopeful that that really turns into a successful partnership that moves the phone platform to the next level. So it's and it's really also really good for podcasters too. I think because that podcast functionality is going to travel on all those new, all those Nokia phones built into the operating system. So and that wasn't the case with the Symbian platform. So
Symbian? What's that? Is that thing that just was had an axe drove through it yesterday?
yep. Well, it's not totally going away.
Oh,
I think
I saw their chart. Here's what's going to happen over the next year with Symbian. There's this line, adoption, and it's going to go. It's like straight down, and then guess what was mimicking it was the Windows 7 platform. So it's going to be
sounds good to me.
huge. It's going to be huge.
Symbian to Windows Phone 7 was like DOS to Windows 95.
Now, here's the thing that if you think, people here in the United States don't really understand, I don't think, the impact that this has, because Nokia has been very dominant overseas. They have not been so dominant here in the United States. Obviously, they've lost some major headway over here the last couple of years, but Nokia is still the brand. You go into almost any country,
Yep.
and you see a predominance of Nokia, 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 Nokia on the available phones. So this has got
Well,
to be an instant boost for Microsoft.
if we still had phones that did one thing and one thing only, and that was call people, then Nokia would probably still be on top. But they they watch the times change, and I remember, how many Nokia phones did we have? I had three. No, I had four myself.
Yeah.
So with changing times, and they didn't change with the times, and then they're sitting there in the back seat wondering what's going on, and they're seeing their number one status go bye bye,
Right.
and yeah, it just whoever was there just did not make the right decision and get off their high horse and move on.
I think we all saw that article several, well, maybe a month ago that actually talks about the what happened within the Nokia hierarchy when the iPhone was introduced. They basically said that's impossible. They can't do that. They thought Apple was lying in their announcement when the very first iPhone was announced, and so they were desperate to get their hands on one of those things, and I guess they were just completely, they fell out of their chairs, and obviously it was something like that that shook up the industry, and we all know they did. And now you look at Android. Android's coming on like, whew, it's very quickly making up lost ground. So I guess the question is, Rob, what's the expectation, and how fast are they going to make this happen?
I don't really know for sure. I would think that there's a lot of incentive, in that partnership. And I did hear, in the keynote that both sides have been working together for quite a while now already. So I think they have had a run up on this before the announcement. So hopefully it'll be fairly quickly. I think that um, you know, I mean, we do have a public operating system right now that's selling phones. So it's
Right.
just really, it's really a hardware issue at this point for Nokia.
Well, the
But
Engadget had some pictures up on the website yesterday. I don't know if this is a spoof but some sort of concept phone is available already. So obviously if they've been working on this a while, they may be ready to pull the trigger and drop these on the street in the next
yeah,
couple of
I can't
months.
can't confirm those photos as accurate, but I would say that 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 type of a form factor makes a lot of sense. I mean, if you look at what is selling here in the
Right,
U.S.,
right.
it's that Samsung Focus, and that phone there looks an awful lot like a Samsung Focus. And
Mm-hmm.
I think I think that the big strength that is being brought to the table, I think for the Nokia side of the fence is the ability to take photos and video. I think that's going to be probably the biggest selling point for a Nokia phone with the Windows Phone platform.
Right.
Is that multimedia capability that they've always been so strong at, and that's also, I keep saying this, but it's also really really good for podcasters too.
Yeah, and
So
it's because what it is we're right there on the menu system,
yep,
and how many millions of these are going to go out. It is, and, no, we can't say that Apple's been helping podcasters at all recently. We'll talk about that here in a few minutes. But it's an interesting development for sure, and I'm excited. So I'm hoping that I hope they sell millions of these things worldwide. We need more international audience. My international numbers went up. I think the other day I checked, I was in 180 countries. I think 10 of those countries have one or two listeners each, but I guess that still qualifies as being in that country. But I'd like to see those onesie twosies go into hundreds and thousands. So,
I'm
hmm
big in China.
the China thing is kind of interesting. It is.
I looked at my stats and it said that was it I can't remember if it was 29 or 39% came from, no, I think it was 29% came from China
Yeah, that doesn't
for my
sound right.
podcast. It's weird.
Yeah, that some shows have had that kind of a breakout. So we're actually going to start next week working on the next update of the stats. So something I'll have Angela look in and make sure we're not getting some because what we use is we use a some pretty well known tools to do the country mapping, and there's
Mhm.
databases out there where those IP allocations are. So that's how that is done. You very well could have people. There's a lot of Americans expats in China. So let me go ahead here and well anyway, Rob, it's gonna be good, and I think you're gonna be busy. It's kind of sounds like.
Well, yeah, I'm doing all I can to push podcasting, in the company, I'm keeping the pressure on and keeping things moving forward. So I'm really, really hopeful that, we can grow this whole thing, across the world. So, I mean, because right now the Zune podcast area is just in the U.S.
Just got to figure
So
out a way, Rob, to bring in those live elements. So, a show, you go to a show
I don't disagree
and,
with you. It's a really great idea, actually. Yeah.
you go into and it says, oh, they're live right now. Let me watch them live. Click.
Yeah.
And
No, I think
so,
Say, Rob, I got to ask you a question because Paul Thurrott brought it up a couple weeks ago on his show, Windows Weekly. He goes, "There's really only one Zune podcast or one Zune guy left, the glorified Zune geek. Are you that guy?"
no, there's other people there that work for Zune. No question about that. But as far as in my area, I'm the last one standing, as they say. No,
yeah, for the
just
podcast portion, yeah.
And
um,
everything, I'm assuming everything's moving over to Windows 7, so you're probably working hard on Windows 7 in the Zune area anyway, right?
oh, of course, no, I can't really comment on that.
Yeah.
But it's I mean clearly there's a lot of consolidation going on at the company right now where we're trying to kind of create teams that work across the company, not necessarily. I mean, I think that there's been a pattern at the company of different teams doing the same type of work in different groups, and so there's this effort going on right now of kind of consolidating that. So you have one group that works across the company, and Zune is a very good indication of that, or a really good example of that, where the group and the team that I work on is doing all the content for all of the tuners across the whole company. From Xbox to the phone to Windows Media Center, and so I'm actually my plate is getting bigger and bigger all the time, and it's really because of this consolidation and in the company looking to move quicker by bringing all these things together under one umbrella in each function of the company. So,
Cool.
Well, I think it's smart, and I'm sure there's going to be more as we go on. It's probably going to be more like that, and maybe you won't be maybe be the Windows Phone 7 podcast manager soon, Rob, instead of the Zune manager. But we'll let that announcement come when it comes.
well, I don't necessarily think that that's going to be the case. I think, and hopefully, what continues to move forward is that podcasts are on multiple tuners, so it
Right.
isn't just the Windows Phone. It could be on some other TV connected kind of platform that might exist in the ecosystem, and then other types of software platforms or that might come out in the future. So it's it's really I kind of want to sit in the middle of it to be able to manage the distribution to all of these places that people might want to
Mhm.
consume audio and video.
Well, you have four major areas. You have computers, you have smartphones, you have media devices, TV devices, and then you have vehicles.
Yep.
So I suppose you could throw appliances in there too, but it's all going to become one.
Yeah, I can totally see this. I can totally see us listening or watching a podcast on our refrigerator doors, right?
Can't
I
wait.
mean, or on our mirror in our bathroom, right? You can have a little flat screen that sits behind your mirror.
Yep.
Hey, let's talk just a little bit about acquisitions and some stuff going on in the acquisition space. There's been a company called Uber Media who's been buying up some of the hottest tweet clients out there. I just use the Twitter client. I don't use anything else. But I guess a company called this, again, Uber Media has acquired TweetDeck. They recently purchased Uber Tweeter. They bought Echo Fun. Folks over at TechCrunch are talking about this, and they're saying now that this company, all of a sudden, very quickly, has amassed a large percentage of the tweet clients, And I'm thinking to myself, if you want access to information about what people are saying and you can't get it through Twitter, just buy up all the clients. So um, I'm not familiar with this company at all. Started March of last year in California, but I guess they've got enough cash to be able to buy these companies, which you would think would be going for significant prices considering their followers, the number of people are using the apps themselves. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I don't really know much about these guys either, but I mean, I think that there's an industry that's popping up here, um, around Twitter. There's also been a lot of rumors around Twitter and Google getting together at some point, and
Yeah,
I'm not
or Facebook.
necessarily,
Yeah.
yeah, and I'm not necessarily sure that that's a good thing. I think it'd be best if Twitter remained kind of separate
Yeah.
from platform or another.
I would not want to see them go to Facebook. I'd get, God, if I had to log into Facebook to use Twitter, I'd shoot myself. I just, no, thank you. I just, I go on Facebook when I need to, and, but I don't know. It doesn't seem like a good match to me, but what am I to know
What
when someone throws, $10 billion in your lap?
what
Yeah,
really
well,
concern
that's
what
that could do it.
what really concerns me about this is where the policies really start to lie. I mean, when you got a company, when you use your tweet decks and your other third party companies to manage your Twitter account, you got to wonder what they're doing, how they're making money off of this whole thing. And I've always said the person with the most data wins. So Twitter is just this ball of money just waiting to really roll down a hill, and by just taking your information and using it for advertising. Well, now you got a third party that's kind of being the intermediate between that, so they can sit there and they can grab the information, they can grab your tweets and figure out what you're talking about, and then also make money on that. Now, one thing we didn't catch at CES, there was a company out there that was working with something with SMS, where when you sent an SMS while you were in a building or something like that, it could actually collect that information
Hang on,
and
Jeffrey.
turn around and give you. I'm sorry.
Jeffrey, hang on a second. Rob, you're going to crash. I'm probably going to have you reconnect. Skype is saying has encountered an error and cannot continue. So if you go away, come right back. Go ahead, Jeffrey. I think I lost him
Oh,
already.
that's okay. The bottom line is when you've got a third party company like that that's trying to manage your tweets. You got to read their privacy policies, read what they're going to do with your data, because we might find ourselves all of a sudden getting pulled up, just like with Facebook and stuff like that. Just wondering where our data is going, and all of a sudden our faces are being used for something that we didn't think that we would be in.
Yeah, it's and it who knows. You're right though. The person with the most amount of data wins. Let's see if Rob is going to come back. Rob, we lost Rob.
I must have
It's
bored Rob.
it's the first time I've seen Skype crash. I've never had Skype crash like that. So it says it's Skype says it's back online, and all right, hopefully he's watching a chat. Well, while we're waiting for Rob to come back, hopefully he can. Let's talk a little bit about some stuff going on. Let's see, boy, oh boy, ZDNet, you gotta love them, but they have got like, and let me just show you this page. This is what I'm being presented when I go to their website. Isn't that just nice? All kinds of advertisements in front. Can't even read nothing. Yeah, Rob, Skype crashed. Don't know what happened there.
Yeah, I don't
So
either. It's but I'm back now.
now let's look at let's talk about a little bit about what happened in Egypt, and specifically about this guy that works at Google, or I don't know if he still works at Google, but can you imagine here you've got their top guy in Egypt, and he's out there raising mayhem to overthrow the country. Do you think he's going to have a job next week?
Yeah, I think so.
Most companies would be thinking this would be a PR nightmare. I don't know. He said that he'll go back to Google if he's not fired. So obviously he's worried about it. Um, but I guess it says whether or not he feels Google will rehire him. So I never knew that he wasn't still working for Google. But I wonder if Google's saying, okay, you no longer work for us from a technical standpoint, because everything I had heard, he was still working for Google.
Well, he may have been staying longer than his vacation or whatever, so that
Oh.
could have been what kind of ended their employment agreement with him.
Yeah, well, maybe he'll end up running for an office now that the army has control. So we'll see. That whole situation's a big mess, but it is kind of curious to see power of the people. It should make a lot of dictators in Cuba and in other countries shaking their boots. Can you imagine if the Chinese people all started, you don't have, you've got billions of them. You just take 100 million pissed off Chinese and have them start protesting the Tiananmen Square. That would be nothing as compared to what could happen. But
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you guys think this is going to spread?
Well, it goes to show that you can't just turn the internet off anymore. It's just not possible.
Well, they did. Yeah, it's possible, but the
Oh, it's
ramifications.
possible, but the uprising pretty much brought it back. I'm assuming all internet has been restored
Yeah,
in Egypt right
it has
now.
been for a few days or more than a few days. I don't know. What do you think, Rob? Think we're gonna see more digital revolutions per se?
Yeah, I think we are. I think that there's a lot of countries that would love to make this change. It's going to create a lot of changes and a lot of uncertainty, I think, out there in a lot of countries. But I think most people around the world want to be free. So, are they going to be willing to do what it takes? And is the dictator that's in power going to be willing to go peacefully? I think those are the two questions in my mind, because I think it depends on how brutal the dictator is and how much power they think they have over their own people to squash the uprising.
It's not even maybe countries with dictators, but countries with authoritarian rule.
Yeah,
Here's the
that's
thing. Here's the thing. It should scare us, though. Even though, wow, great, congratulations. We'll see what happens in 6 months. We see if there's another puppet that gets elected. If they have fair elections, that'll be a big thing. But let's say this happened in Saudi Arabia, for example. Can you say $10 gas or $20 a gallon gas? That's the thing that we have to be prepared for. The gas prices went up. Our fuel prices went up. I don't know what it was, $104 a barrel or something like that. Just on the, and Egypt exports oil, but nothing like Saudi Arabia does. Just on the little flare up in Egypt. So can you imagine? Boy, we'd all be doing like this, thumbing a ride or walking to work.
well, I'd say that's a very good reason why we need to work toward getting off of our dependency on oil from the Middle East
Yep.
as fast as possible for a lot of reasons. This is just one reason. It's not going to be easy, and it's going to take a lot of changes, a lot of sacrifice from the people, in this country to make that change. But I think it's inevitable, one way or the other. We either do it because we need to do it, or we're forced to do it. I think those are the two options.
Well, there's also the precious metal issue. China is now shutting down exports of precious metals. So the DOE has had to start up refining and basically going after some of these ores that we don't have ready access to, and in order to, you know, come up with a shortage of stuff that China's not exporting anymore. So there's only so many resources. It could get very interesting here very, very quickly. Well, let's go into a favorite topic here. We'll talk about Sony and iTunes, and then we'll talk about iTunes. But there's a report out on theaged.com.au that a war is looming as Sony hints that it may abandon iTunes. And Sony has already gotten slapped down by Apple just recently, and some stuff that an app they tried to put in the App Store, and Sony is basically hinting that they're going to take their 60 million tracks of music and they're going to take and go home. So, is what do you think? Is there any viability to this?
Well, I think what's going on here, and kind of being a little bit on the music side, being at Zune, is that for a long time, from what we hear, Apple has been pretty aggressive in working with these labels to get you know favorable deals,
Yep.
and a lot of the labels want to have some power, and they feel that Apple has too much power in the marketplace. And I mean, we hear constantly from our label partners that they want like platforms like Zune to thrive and be successful, because it puts competition in the marketplace and makes those those contract negotiations a little easier on both sides,
Right.
and one side doesn't take advantage of another. And this just could be Sony standing their ground, because Sony's in a unique situation because they're offering movies and other types of content to iTunes as well that they can hold over their heads. Um, so it's a little different than some other music labels that don't have that kind of content that they can kind of leverage against any kind of deal. But I mean, I think this is a good thing. I think on the surface it looks more ominous than it really is. I think it's just a ploy in the negotiation.
And if they can get some better pricing and not be held over the barrel so much, with a gun pointing at them, say sign on the bottom line, that's
Yep.
probably a good thing
Hmm.
for Sony.
But the thing is that we talk about Nokia being antiquated. In all reality, iTunes is just as antiquated. They found a winning way, and they decide why do we need to stray from this winning way when we've got everybody under the sun using our system, and we
Hmm.
can call the shots and we can make things happen. Well, now all of a sudden we're seeing different ways to do things, and iTunes is not the way. And but they're still thinking, hey, we're still king of the hill, and we'll be king of the hill for years now. But the reality is they need to start thinking about the future, and the future is not going to be iTunes. It's going to be something else in the next 2 years. That's the bottom line.
Well, I know.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Rob.
yeah, we're starting to see the iTunes share kind of decline, and we've actually been seeing that for quite for at least a year now. They're not as dominant as they used to be. I mean, I think there's just a lot more competition that's coming up, and I think you can see that in the numbers that came out this past week about the Xbox platform being a strong place for movies and video. Um, I think the Xbox platform on video, the iTunes equivalent of the TV and movie store, having about 17% of the market, and the iTunes side, I think, is like 60 some percent, and they've dropped like 10% in the last year,
Hmm.
and the Zune store has gone up about 10 or 12%. So there's kind of a balancing out that's going on, and and that's not taking into consideration the whole Netflix side of the fence either, which is a little different model. That's more of a subscription model, where the Zune and iTunes is more on a rental and purchase per asset kind of a model. And so there's kind of a leveling out of the competition. The Amazon folks are taking a growing share of the market, and there's talk of, like a Walmart, an online store from those guys taking a big chunk of this market. So iTunes is not dominating on the movie side and the TV show side as much as people think it is, um, because frankly they don't have a lot of devices that are actually plugged into a television. So I think that's the advantage that Xbox has over iTunes, is the Apple TV product is out there, and but there's not as many Apple TVs out there as there are Xboxes.
Someone
Yeah.
just said in Skype, in the chat, Rob, that Zune has a long way to go with podcasters. I'd like that person to clarify that. I think, if you look at what Zune has done, Zune had the biggest growth rate for podcasters in years. We saw the biggest growth of audience numbers, the most market share come on. iTunes has not grown market share for podcasters in years. They're flat across the
You know,
board.
iTunes did this is doing the same model that Yahoo did so many years ago, where Yahoo was pretty much tried to become people's homepage. In fact, if you went into a business situation before there was real IT definitions out there, and you went into a work situation, you went to the home situations, everybody's homepage was a Yahoo homepage for the most part. There were other people that were on MSN or whatever, but when the ball was rolling, you went to different people's desktops. The majority of desktops you saw was Yahoo. Same thing with iTunes. It's like they knew that they could get music and then video from the whole thing. So they decided that basically they figure, okay, you started with iTunes, you're going to stick with iTunes, and I think that's where their downfall is going to be, especially nowadays when people are not even downloading iTunes onto their new machines. They've moved on. I don't know what the dominant system is going to be. I'm assuming it's going to be something cloud based that they can get, and they can take their information. They can go from one to the next, but it's not iTunes, and that's for sure.
Hey Rob, one of what was going on in the chat room, he says I heard a lot of podcasters complain about how difficult it is to get listed in Zune. Do you want to address that?
Yeah, yeah. I definitely wanted to speak to the comment about the Zoom platform. I agree 100%. We have a long way to go to make the platform as friendly as it needs to be for podcasters. I totally agree. I'm pushing as hard as I can on this end to get those changes made, and hopefully in the next year or so, we're going to see some big changes in that. I know I've been saying this for a couple of years now, but it's easier to make changes from the inside, and I'm doing what I can.
Yeah.
But to answer the question about getting podcasts in the catalog, um, our kind of submission process is a little bit kind of not ideal. I mean, it was the process that was built back in 2007. It hasn't really been updated much. I mean, there's been some work that's been done on it, but it's a popularity contest, if you have to say what it is, and that model. It's based on how many times a feed is submitted to me. That's the honest truth of it, and it's not how I would have architected it, but that's what I have to work with. So I want to always put my email address out there as a resource for podcasters. Send me your feed to rob@zune.net, and I'll get it in for you personally. It's really important to me that podcasters are happy with the Zoom platform, and I know that our submission process isn't as efficient as it needs to be, but I'm here to help. So, and that's rob@zune.net.
I think Rob too, one of the reasons why, that I can understand why they did it to begin with, because you look at the podcast directory over at iTunes, you can't find nothing. It
Mm-hmm.
is an absolute abomination because they've got shows in there that have not produced a podcast in 4 years. And the
Mm-hmm.
directory is not maintained. They don't delete stuff that is old. Yeah, they got
Yeah.
60,000 listings. I think about 40,000 of them are dead.
Yeah.
So it's nuts. It really, really is. Hey, let's talk.
Well,
Go ahead.
and we have some of those problems too, and I'm doing what I can, but I mean we've got about 30,000 feeds that really need to be monitored, because like you say, Todd, podcasters. Um, I mean, it's a very high percentage of podcasters that will launch a podcast, put out 5 or 6, 7 episodes, and stop updating, right?
It,
And those podcasts really serve no value to the catalog.
yeah.
Uh, and then other feeds, the podcast is still listed in there, but there's no episodes. So that's an ongoing problem for any podcast platform today, and I'm fully aware of it, and I'm pushing our team to build tools that will find those things for me, so I can go in and pull them out of the catalog, so we can cut down on this clutter that's happening, because it is happening across all of the platforms,
If
and it needs to
Mhm.
be improved.
if I were you, I wouldn't list a show until they hit show 20, episode 25. I
Yeah,
just well, year after year I've done stats, run stats numbers, and I didn't really want to get too deep into this conversation, but it's about 60% of shows don't make it past episode 7, and then of those remaining shows, then about 75% of them don't make it past episode 25. So you
Yeah.
look at that in a, whatever that math equals out to be. You start with 100 shows, you might have 10 or 12 that get past episode 25. And of course, when you're
mhm,
starting on day one, you want to be listed everywhere.
yeah,
And
Hmm.
so that's one of the reasons why over at TPN, why we have a 7 show minimum, and I delete shows every year, because they haven't made it past show 7. Let's talk about what Apple did this past week. And of course, that is what I'm talking about here is they have removed the ability to ping iTunes and let them know that you have a new episode. While this doesn't so much affect people that are already subscribed, because when you're already subscribed to a show, the iTunes client goes out and looks for your feed and basically updates your basically what you're subscribed to. The ability to ping iTunes now is going to, I think, negatively impact. Well, there's two things that's going on here. One is that it was a great tool to use to be able to help content creators because there was certain information you could derive from that ping you'd sent over to them. But now we're no longer going to be able to um, look at that data. There's going to, if you want help with fixing a feed that's going in iTunes, you're going to have to contact Apple themselves. It's just so much stuff that we can't do anymore at least from Raw Voices side. But we think this is significant. It's negative, and for those people that are doing daily content that want to make sure that their content's being updated in the directory, it's not going to happen. And they're saying they're going to pull a feed once every 24 hours, but we know for a fact that is a half truth because they don't pull all feeds every 24 hours. They have a tendency to um, build some sort of an algorithm, and good luck if you are. You better be. All I can say is, if you're not publishing on a schedule, you're going to get screwed.
mhm,
Hmm.
yeah.
So, any thoughts on them removing the functionality, guys, or any thoughts?
I don't know. I mean, I think when I first heard about it, I immediately thought, well, Apple must have built a better way to skin this cat. If they were looking at the feeds more frequently, then I would say it's probably not necessarily a bad thing. But it doesn't sound like that's the case. It sounds like they did it for maybe cost savings on their server network. Um, it's hard to really understand. I mean, we have a lot of the same issues, but kind of our core architecture pulls dynamically from the RSS feed for most of the visibility of the podcasts in the Zune software. So we don't have this massive caching issue that iTunes has, of caching the episode uh,
Right.
data, because we don't cache episode level data in our
Oh,
on our servers.
that's nice.
So we only cache the series level data. So we're pulling dynamically against the feed for every actual request that a user makes to get to an episode. So I mean, that can be a better way of doing it. I would like to have the episode level data in there because it makes for better search. Because we don't have a very good search kind of process because we're not pulling the episode level data. Um, so I mean, I think that, unfortunately, iTunes, I think, scaled back on this, and I'm not exactly sure what their motivations were. So it's hard for me to know.
Yeah, for me too. And it's just it's just the way it is. There's nothing we can do, and people are gonna complain. But I had one guy ask me, one guy that was a quote unquote podcast expert, and this is how he was like, "What is that?" And he didn't even know what it was. I'm like, "You're not too much of a podcast expert." It's in every WordPress client. It was in our client. It was in PodPress. Although the PodPress ping, maybe this is why they removed it. The PodPress ping client's been broke for about 2.5 years. When you were pinging with PodPress, you really weren't pinging.
Yeah.
You were pinging them, but you were pinging them with invalid information. So maybe that's why. Maybe Apple got sick and tired of being abused by, plugins that weren't being kept current. And I always laughed, because people were like, my show's not updating, and I'm like, you're not pinging. Oh yes, I am. I'm pinging. I'm like, you're pinging, but it's broke. Don't you know that? But
I wonder. I wonder if they're going for an alternate ping method, where instead of asking for the podcaster itself, to where the podcasters, because I know with my podcast, I go and I ping several areas. I ping Yahoo, I ping Google, I ping iTunes, I ping. I think I ping Zune. I think there's a ping there, but the bottom line is, what if Apple's actually kind of retooling that method, instead of saying we want this information directly from the podcaster, to go to these other podcast catchers and then read the information from there to update their data.
Apple's too siloed. They would never do that. They wouldn't rely on someone else's data, I don't think. They've removed it from their spec sheet, so I think that is pretty telling in itself. Oh, time will tell. We'll see. We'll see what they'll do. I just, my hopes aren't too high, to be honest with you.
Maybe they're closing everything down.
Yeah, I doubt it.
Also, one thing that they could be doing here is they could be trying to do more intelligent parsing of the XML, where they understand what the frequency of updates are,
Yeah.
and only ping those feeds that are updated like hourly or daily,
Yep.
at certain times, because that's usually when they get updated. So that could be what they're doing. I mean, if that's how that's how I would want to architect our backend. Would be to learn from the update uh, frequency for each feed, and then only ping that feed during that time frame, right?
That's why I said people better be posting on a schedule. If they're not,
Yep.
they're not going to have a very good. They might be a week before they get updated.
Yeah, because it's true that really good podcast content providers are regular on their frequency.
Yeah.
So that's an accepted thing.
Well, let's talk. Let's switch
You guys
from.
just made me.
Go ahead.
You guys just made me realize I forgot to update my day in tech history podcast.
So
I'm a day behind.
You're slipping.
Yeah, I'm not passing judgment on anybody here, but just saying.
So let's talk about the digital space and its impact on business. We've just learned that we've known Borders has been in trouble for a while, but it's being reported that Borders is about ready to file for bankruptcy and potentially shutting down a huge number of stores. Have you
That's
guys?
too bad.
When was the last time you guys were in a Borders?
There's a Borders down the street from where I live, but I've never been in it.
Yeah, I used to go in one on a regular basis, but I think that's kind of par for the times here, because everything's going into the digital realm now, so I think people aren't buying physical books as much as they used to.
Well, there's part of it. Amazon Kindle on
Yeah.
my phone, and I also have my Audible application as well. So here's my Audible book. So I've got what I just don't. I'll be honest with you. The last time I went into Borders was actually to find a tech book. Find a specific book on what was it? I think it was a Linux book or something like that. But and I think the only time I was in there before was to go find my own book on the bookshelf. So that tells you how long it's been. So maybe maybe it's just like the way of Blockbuster. Maybe the folks at Borders are headed the same way. They should have had a much more aggressive digital space. They should have learned from Amazon early on, but they didn't.
Well, I mean, from my own experience over the last 5 years, the only real motivation I have to go into a Borders or a Barnes and Noble is to look at magazines.
Oh, that's true. But
And
people
and
still publish magazines.
yeah,
and that's going. We did the one interview with that one company that does the magazines online,
Yeah,
and
and they do
so
it very well.
yeah. So, and we all know what's happening to the magazine business. So, I mean, that doesn't bode well for their future.
Yeah. Well,
On
go
the
ahead.
real questions is how's Barnes and Noble doing? I mean, if Borders is failing, is Barnes and Noble failing too, or are they staying pretty much on top of things?
I think they're bigger, but I can't. I would imagine they're having the same struggles. It's just on a different scale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard to say. Now I saw this a great headline last night on ZDNet, and you guys are gonna love this. First legal shot fired at Google's VP at codec. So here, Google made this big. They said, "Oh, we're gonna remove H.264 support for Chrome. We're all gonna go VP8. We're moving this way. We've got this completely free, public domain VP8." First of all, can you encode any video on VP8 on any of the tools you've got right now?
I didn't even know that codec existed until Google said they were going to support it.
I've got about 5 video auditing suites here on my computer, and one on my Mac, and I don't see VP8. I don't even see it in Final Cut. Of course, I don't see
No,
it in Final Cut. But
no,
all
yeah.
right, okay, so they're gonna go to this, and they said it was free of any issues. But now Google has going to have some legal challenge. MPEG LA, the group that manages the licensing of patents for the H.264 codec, announced today that it's be forming a patent pool and gathering claims from companies that believe they have patents essential to the VP8 codec. Huh.
Uh,
Now, isn't Google part of that MPEG LA coalition, if I remember correctly?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Um, you know,
Seems awfully coincidental there, doesn't it?
Awfully coincidental.
Yeah. Oh well.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to go anywhere. It's a non-starter issue.
You're still going to be able to watch H.264 in Chrome because Microsoft has already said we're going to build a plugin for Chrome,
Yeah.
and you're just going to see it in Flash. And
Oh,
I don't know. I think this was a mute point. I think they pissed everybody off, and we're open. We're going to work with only open stuff. Yet they got Flash still in Chrome. Chrome open, Flash open, no Flash. Okay.
Everybody's trying to steal the standard. That's the bottom line right there.
Yep. Now,
it sounds like a throwback to the late '90s. In the early part of the streaming media. Kind of upsurge, right? As everybody wanted their own proprietary codec.
right.
And I,
Gone are
you know,
the days of the
still
floppy
tap
drive.
with
I
that.
always say
Yeah.
because well, you think about it. The floppy drive was the standard, and nobody whoever created the floppy drive, which I'm not exactly sure who did, really didn't put anything on the standard. So everybody made a floppy drive. Well, when floppy drives became too small to do anything, they tried to make a new standard, and Zip tried their standard, and SuperDrive tried their standard, but nobody could
Yep.
really go on the standard. So everybody still had a floppy drive up until 2 years ago. Um, and I don't know if companies still make floppy drives for computers or not,
They
but
make them with that plug into a USB port just in case. I've got one just in case there's an emergency. And
exactly.
although there is in the tech world, believe it or not, there are lots of test equipment that has, of course, you got this piece of test equipment that's $100,000. It's like you're going to run down and replace that next week. $100,000 that's got a 3.5-inch floppy in it that is used to get data offloaded. Now, the new test equipment obviously is all USB ported, but I've talked to guys that are worried they've got these $100,000 pieces of test equipment and they're not going to be able to get media to get the media off the test equipment. So, um, pretty crazy.
Yeah, yeah, it's really, really funny to think about those floppy disks. I mean, those disks held 1.44 megabytes.
Well, yep. Yeah.
It's a, it's a joke now. I mean, it's just, I can't even imagine why anybody or how anybody would even justify using them anymore.
In that cabinet right back there, I've got a 1.6 gig hard drive I spent $1,000 for. So,
Does it still work?
no, it's a Western Digital. It don't work. And as a matter of fact, I think I
Oh,
had it
okay.
replaced 5 times. It was that bad. Hey, let's talk about Facebook versus Twitter and the race to make the news social. Mark Zuckerberg came out this week and basically said, news is the next horizon. This is what we're going to go after. And, I think he's done great on the social part, but do you think that Facebook has the chops to change the news industry? I think Twitter does a little bit more, and they have to a certain extent. Although I still don't necessarily agree that you can get everything out in 140 characters. But who do you think does Zuck stand a chance in toppling the Murdochs?
Well, I think what we need to clarify is what we're talking about here, because from what I've noticed over the last few years, the news has already been socialized. I'm just not sure what he's talking about as far as the next stage of that and what that really means. Because from what I've heard, there isn't really much clarification. But I would say that this movement has been going on for a very long time.
Yeah.
I mean, the socialization of news is not anything new. I'll look at just what happened in Egypt. I think that's an example of the socializing of news.
Well, let me tell you what was said here. Taylor, who is the chief technology officer, I guess, over there, he says the former co-founder of the social network FriendFeed didn't provide much of former co-founder didn't provide much away details during his interview. He did say that he sees disruption coming in a number of industries as a result of social platforms like Facebook, much like it has to gaming, and that one of those disruptive industries likely to be media. He says, if we had to guess, it's probably going to be oriented around media or news because they are so social. When you watch a television show with your friend, it's such an engaging social activity. We think that there's a next generation of startups that are developing social versions of these applications. Maybe that's where Zanga is to gaming, and they will be to media and news, and they're really excited about that. But I guess it doesn't go into too much details what's going to happen to Facebook, but there was talk this week that Facebook is going to be, trying to make news more social on their website. So,
Hmm.
Well, with the bottom line is people when people see it, the people report it, and the citizen, well, no, it's
citizen media, is that what you're trying to?
citizen. That's the citizen journalism is the way of future, and sometimes you don't even have to cite the journalist area. Um, uh, Podcasts that I hear nowadays, there are a few of them out there that basically pull from Twitter when they want to get information. Like for instance, one podcast in particular is actually about the top trends of Twitter, and when they need something for the day, all they have to do is go to Twitter and do a hashtag, and then all of a sudden they've got a whole bunch of quotes that they can use from. So we could see something like the next serial killer was out there, and all of a sudden you go to Facebook and see a post. He was a quiet boy, and you can use that because it's coming from Facebook.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Now, this is completely non-tech related, but I want to talk. It just happened up your way, Rob. Portland, Oregon man dies outside emergency room after hospital tells police to call 911. This guy was trying to go to the emergency room, having a heart attack. He wrecked his car 120 feet from the entrance to the emergency door, trying to get to the hospital, and they wouldn't come out and get him. They made the police call an ambulance to come get him. He died.
Wow.
You
Scared
know,
to walk through your front door, huh?
I guess if you don't cross the threshold, he should have crashed through the doors in the emergency room. That'd have got their attention. Do you think they took him out of the car then, or called a wrecker
Yeah.
and say you got to pull him out first before we can take him out of the car? I could foresee this family getting a very big cash settlement from this hospital. I think if I was this family, I think I would retain counsel. And I'm not the suing type, but um, boy, oh boy, that's just
Yeah.
amazing. The guy was
That is.
so anyway, 60-year-old Cuban immigrant and dead. All right, let's talk about AT&T and the Verizon thing that happened this week. First of all, AT&T is doing everything they can to keep us a customer. They're giving 1,000 free minutes. They're offering up all kinds of stuff. They made data free. I mean, voice calls free, mobile to mobile for anything over 450-minute plans,
Free
and
phones too.
free phones. They did some stuff on 4G. We'll talk about in a second, but so I'm thinking they're really worried about the impact that Verizon's going to have. But did you notice that the Verizon launch was kind of I hate to say it, a non-event? There was
Yeah.
hardly any news about it.
Well, and there wasn't anybody in line to get the phone either, from what I saw in the news reports.
Huh? Does that mean these folks have already got Androids? Or do they have a Zune already?
Soon.
Well, if
Uh,
they're
or
smart,
a
they're
Windows
waiting
Phone
for
7?
iPhone 5. That's
Well,
the bottom line.
the,
I mean, it's only iPhone 5 comes out in 4 months, and there's going to be absolutely no problems. iPhone 4 is a band-aid fix to Verizon by reconfiguring the chip to work from GSM to CDMA. It just makes sense to wait the 3 months to get an iPhone 5 that's actually going to be properly tested on Verizon and give the applications a chance, because that was one of the news stories out there too, was some of the applications on iPhone wouldn't work on Verizon's iPhone
right.
because of the fact of the chip change.
Now, MediaCast guy in the chat room says Verizon sold out in 2 hours. It was the biggest sales day in their history. Well, they sure didn't cover it in the news like that. And the news didn't give them any justice then. Maybe it was all online sales or something.
My
Because, go ahead.
my favorite thing was the antenna gate issues that were coming on the Verizon iPhone. Except they had to take the iPhone, they had to like hold it like this
Oh,
to get
yeah, the
the
different
get
way.
no signal coming out of it.
Well, it definitely did not really peak the radar very far on the tech scene. So if they had a big sales day, it would have been good for them. But I heard the one story I did hear is that they were lined up in Fargo, North Dakota. That's the one story I saw, and the reason is because Verizon doesn't have service in that area of North Dakota. So I mean, AT&T does not. So they really had no other choice. I heard they lined up there and sold out. Now, along with this, AT&T announced some new 4G policies. If you're on a current 4G, which if you're on AT&T, you got a 3GS, you're not on 4G. Um, if you are on a 4G, one of their few 4G phones, do they even have 4G service? I don't even know if they have 4G service in Hawaii. But anyway, 4G, if you're on one of the few people on a 4G, you're going to be able to get a new phone and keep your unlimited data plan. But if you're a new person getting a 4G, imagine this, because it's probably going to be 4G incorporated in the new iPhone 5. I would hope so anyway. They're saying that 2 gigs for $25 and $10 per gig for overage, just like you're paying now. That's just ridiculous. If the 4G, it's meant to cruise. It's meant to go quick and surf and
Yeah,
uh,
yeah, you could use that 2 gigs up. I think I've heard people say in like a half an hour if you were doing a lot of downloading.
Barry had switched his phone to 4G. I mean, actually, excuse me. just on 3G alone. He tethered his phone with a 3G connection,
Yeah.
and he used his allotment in 3 days. Now, we were heavy online doing stuff, but normally if I'm on an eVideo card, I use about 250 megs in an 8-hour time frame if I'm doing normal surfing. So really, still, that would be burned pretty quick. Now, my phone, I think the biggest month I ever had was like 1.8 or 1.9 gigs. So I've never really outdone it in my phone, but oh, MediaCast guy saying AT&T has quietly offered unlimited data plans through its retention department. You have to argue for it. But
So in other words, you have to call AT&T and say, "I'm switching to Verizon.
right,
What can you do for me?" And get a whole bunch of new stuff.
Yeah.
with a new 2-year contract, of course.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. So I've got the long-term deal with AT&T where I'm grandfathered in for unlimited data. So I mean, it's a big incentive not to switch.
Yeah, it really is. And it's people are only going to use these devices more. My wife actually busted her 2 gig cap on her iPad last month for the first time. So that tells you how much she's using the iPad. So it's no big deal. But I thought I'd be the one busting the cap, and she was. But anyway, going back to the Verizon,
I'm sorry, but yeah,
that didn't come out
saying
right.
bust. No, saying busting a cap about a year ago meant something completely different. I just
So
find that funny. I'm sorry.
it's
Continue.
okay. So anyway, no, I'm not shooting a gun. So anyway,
Good.
we'll see how Verizon does. We'll see if how much more incentives AT&T comes out with. You know what we decided to do, is, of course, Raw Voice pays for my phone, is that we decided to just wait and see what kind of, and I think that's what a lot of people are doing. They're waiting to see how the Verizon people, how the service is, and if they're getting dropped calls, and how they're being able to deal with not being able to do data at the same time they're talking. So that's my biggest worry, because I'm often on a hands free and I'm doing something else. I'm either booking an appointment or I'm online, and I don't know, it'd be a hard trade off. Really, really would be to not be able to do data at the same time I'm talking. But
Yeah.
anyway, let's
I,
uh let's talk about
yeah, I'm staying with AT&T because of that. Yeah.
it's predictable. I can be on the highway here in Honolulu talking to somebody on the phone and say, okay, just I'm coming up to a switch point. I may lose you. And 9 out of 10 times, bam, I lose the signal. I know where all the drop places are, here in Hawaii. It's just this thing cannot switch towers to save its life. And the most drop
Wow.
call network is AT&T.
Yeah. Oh well.
Is
Yeah, I don't.
Apple? Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't make a lot of phone calls anymore, so I'm using other ways. So
Uh,
I don't really care too much about the drop call issue too much.
all right, here's the big one. I think we're all going to get a laugh out of this. This is on ehomeupgrade.com. Is Apple secretly working on a gaming support for the Apple TV?
Ooh.
Last time I checked, is the Apple TV had 8 gigs of memory and underpowered processor. Um, okay, what do you think?
Uh,
You know,
I
it,
don't know.
it
I mean,
I can play
I
games
mean,
on this.
if it has the same processor as what's on the Apple 4, the iPhone,
the Apple
I
TV
probably
has
do it.
the same A4 processor that the iPad has,
Oh,
if I
Yeah,
remember correct.
yeah. I mean, it'll probably do the same kind of gaming,
you
but it's not
know,
going to be.
it's not the same type. It's gonna do the same type of gaming. That's the exact thing. But I don't.
Yeah.
I'm already annoyed when my kids come grab my phone. I have in my phone. I have. Let me show you. I have this section. Oh shoot. This section here is all the kids' games and it's stuff that they bought. And I've got it, categorized for them. So I come home from work or come home from being out, and my son is like, "Dad, can I use your phone?" And I said, "Well, where's the iTouch?" And he says, "The battery's dead." And so he'll want to play games on it. I just can't imagine the Xbox and the Wii and everything else already is hooked up to the to the gaming TV. I don't know how about having an Apple TV hooked up to the gaming TV. If it's a buck 99, it's a lot cheaper than buying games. Buying what's the one that they're playing now on the Xbox? They're playing Black Ops. So
Well, if I can play Angry Birds on my iPhone or play Angry Birds on my Apple TV, maybe that's the big difference right there.
what one was that, Rob, that you showed up?
Oh, it's the Xbox Live app on the Windows Phone 7.
So what's the story with that? What does that do?
It's got games. It actually logs into your account on Xbox, and you can play games here on the phone.
The thing it's about that whole logging into the Xbox Live deal. Um, Kids are like, "Hey, Dad, you need to set up an account." I'm like, "Okay, cool. Let's hang on, let's go back." Yeah, sorry. The and so I tried to log in. It says, "Oh, you've already got an account." And I went over, and it was the most uncool gaming name that you could ever imagine. I said, "Oh, I'll just change my username." Whoever thought up the I gotta pay to get my username changed? I couldn't believe
What?
it. I was like, that's what I did. So I've got the most uncool gaming name on Xbox, and you probably can find me real easy. Most uncool name. I'm gonna get into some live game, and someone's gonna say, "Wow, that's a cool name, dude."
So what
So,
is it?
so what is the name? I'm curious.
It's something podcast something,
Oh,
So it's. Yeah, it's just the
mine's
name you
not
want
that
for
cool either. It's Web Talk Rob.
Web Talk Rob. Oh well,
Yeah,
that's kind of
right there.
that's kind of an uncool gaming name too, Rob. A Web Talk
I know
Rob.
it is, but I was not exactly imaginative at that moment.
Yeah, no one ever thought that stuff would be tied to Xbox 360. What? Why did they? The ecosystems are too interconnected. Hey,
Hmm.
give me a break. Well,
Yeah.
anyway, so we'll see what happens with the Apple TV. Well, the big news is IE9 release candidate is available. Are you any of you playing with it yet? I'll be honest, I haven't downloaded it since I downloaded a beta some months ago. But have any of you loaded the IE9 release candidate?
No.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I have it on my home theater PC, so it actually works really well.
So you've got it on your home theater PC.
Hmm.
Is there an advantage to doing that we need to know about?
No, I just wanted to play with it a little bit. I didn't want to load it on my regular computers quite yet, so I wanted to wait till the full release candidate really came out. So,
Gotcha.
which actually happened last week.
Yeah, it happened on the 10th, so just a couple of days ago.
Yep.
So, I guess I should load it and give it a run for the money and see what's happening with it. But
I can't tell you the last time that I went into Internet Explorer, period. Sorry.
there's some websites, believe it or not, there's some websites that I have gone to recently that I haven't had a good experience with. It's specifically sites that are requiring like banking sites and that type of stuff. They're
Yeah.
still not super optimized for either Firefox or Chrome, so it's a better experience going with iTunes. But um,
Well, for Netflix, if you want to actually use the live stars channel, you actually have to go through Internet Explorer. You can't use Chrome or Firefox on there.
hmm.
Other than that, yeah, a little bit of banking, anything that uses ActiveX over anything, of course. But yeah, for the most part, anything. I don't think I don't remember the last time I opened up Internet Explorer.
So Jeffrey, did you moving away from the IE9 discussion? Did you make a decision if you're going to be able to go out to South by Southwest?
I'm actually still waiting for the media pass. So I put it out there. They said there's a 14-day wait, so I should know by next week whether I will have a media pass.
I'll be honest with you. I'm not going this year. I just There's nothing social in the interactive part that they say is the social. Forget it. But what I did start downloading and is the new 2011 BitTorrent, the free music. Whoops, let me flip back over here. Have you guys download this every year? It's free music. And this year it's 4.49 gigs. First release of it, it's 700 tracks. It's again four and a
Wow.
half gigs, but
Wow.
this is a great way to get some independent music. None of it's RIAA controlled. All of it is free to release and use as you want. And so anyway, it's available up and online. You can find just search on Google 2011 BitTorrent for South by Southwest. So someone's asking Jeffrey, what headset are you using?
I don't. Think this was. I think this is the Dragon Naturally Speaking one.
Oh, okay.
Last year at CES when we went out there, we got a copy of
Yep.
Nuance's Dragon Naturally Speaking. That came with a headset. I think that's what this one is.
I don't think I got that cool of a headset. You got a better one than I did. You know what I was wishing that I had though is those little those earphones that you got at CES. Have you used those at all?
Actually, the funny thing was last night I have them in the bag behind me. Last night I used them for the first time behind the drum set,
And
and
how did they perform?
they did okay. They have it's what's called a single driver, which means it's think of it with one speaker inside the earphones.
Right,
They
right.
have a single driver and a dual driver, and the company's name is Sonamax. Um, and the dual driver actually separates the highs from the lows, which really makes a difference. It's $100 difference, if I remember correctly, from the company, but it really does make the difference. I'm going to talk to them. I'm going to try and get a set of the dual drivers to see how much of a difference it is while I'm playing live as opposed to listening on the iPod or something like that.
Right. Well, guys, I've gotten through my list of stuff. You guys got anything that popped to the top this week that you guys want to talk about?
No, I think you covered all the big stories. That was good.
One thing I do have to share though is one of the cooler products that I've seen, and this is something I can't wait to come out online or can be available. So I can buy a company called VidTonic. It's something we saw at CES, and let me bring it up on the page. And this is you're gonna be able to build your own Android TV. And
Oh yeah.
if you haven't seen this video, these guys are going to gonna recapture the old Heathkit market almost for geeks, but build your own HD TV, and then you'll be able to program and hack away within the Android system. So I thought that was a pretty cool thing. That video went up a couple days on my website. Did you get all your stuff posted, Jeffrey? Are you done?
As of noon yesterday, I have posted everything that was in the list. Yes,
Wow.
and I'm going to be reissuing some of them next week. The more important videos that people should be watching.
You know, I had to scold Andy yesterday, Rob. You're going to love this. We put everything up in a FTP location because what we were finding was Blip was just, oh my God, it was horrible. The experience, basically, we were getting people that were watching our content on Roku and Boxy, and it would play for 10 seconds, and it would sit there and buffer, 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 and play for another 10 seconds, buffer, 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 buffer. So Blip, from a download standpoint, linking to their media, 2 thumbs down. And so basically said, okay, just upload everything into this FTP account. We'll put it up on the high-speed CDN so that everyone can have a great experience. So I was in charge of my files. Jeffrey was in charge of his. Andy was in charge of his files, and so on and so forth with the whole team. So all my stuff is labeled for the live was CES 2011, CS Tech 2011 Tech Live. So Jeffrey and I are like almost done. We've almost got everything up. I think maybe I've got 20 or 25 more postings to do. And so we're linked to all the media, right? All the media is linked. We're humming along. And I get this email yesterday from a guy who says, hey, your media is 404ing. And I'm like, what? And I went into the FTP site, and what Andy had done is took CES 2011 Tech Live, and he'd renamed the file.
Oh no.
And
Oh.
the email wasn't nice.
What?
You know,
You not nice? What? Wait,
we're
what?
all friends, so I'm like, I didn't cuss at him, but I know he'd know I was swearing at him like a sailor. But I put on send him a text message, 911, call me immediately, and he got them all fixed last night. But I was, but you have 260 pieces of media, and you're trying to coordinate, make it all happen. These things happen, but I'm not fixing it. You gotta go in and fix everything. But wow, what a and I'm sure Jeffrey, when you saw that, you were like,
I was driving while you were emailing. It's like, oh no, what's going on?
so it was yeah, 61 gigs. Rob was our final total for all the content. That was the size of all the media once it was processed, post processed. Excuse me. So we're getting huge traffic. The traffic, as long as it's not 404ing, and it's done very, very well. But I still have to go back to some of my old content and update the links. But everything that's in the Zune, everything that's in the feed at least is being fed high speed. So that's the important part. But there'll be some more stuff coming up on TPN.TV too, because I know this is kind of everyone on the stream doesn't care, but did you post Carissa's content, Jeffrey, on TPN?
I did part of it. Well, of course, TPN is the next focus for this next week
Okay.
because we just need to finish all that up. So
Okay.
yeah.
All right. So good. Well, I guess unless anybody has any questions in the audience, I think we're going to pull the plug here. We're an hour 36. I think I can compress that into enough to have it in one file. The last show was two media files. So
There is one more article that just seemed to pop up on the thing. It's about Google weddings.
I haven't heard nothing about this. What's Google doing for Google weddings?
Google has started a new tool called Google Weddings. It streamlines wedding planning and helps lift some of the burden off of a bride's shoulders.
Huh.
Runs through Google Docs, and they partnered up with wedding planner Michelle Rago to help brides not miss a beat on their big day. This is
Interesting.
over on abcactionnews.com.
Hey, I do have one thing to tell you guys about. Callie Lewis over at Revision 3 did her first live stream um, on YouTube yesterday. And she's one of the lucky folks that have been able to get a spot over there. Wow. Major negative feedback. She streams to Justin, Ustream, and then of course this YouTube. So they're pushing the three streams out. And they said the stuff on Justin looked beautiful, the stuff on Ustream looked good, but the stuff on YouTube looked horrendous. Have you guys had any irklings of this, or? But this is the what I had heard back in some forums that I follow over at New Tech. Did you guys hear anything?
No, I hadn't heard about that. I
Yeah.
mean, is it the video quality is just bad?
Yeah, the video quality wasn't good. So maybe they're working out the bugs there, or maybe she didn't have a good connection to him. I don't know, but
Well, would you really? Is the best thing to do is test them all at the same time, or just go up on Justin and test, go up on Ustream and test, then go up on YouTube and test?
well, I've had no problem. I use two separate circuits. I push to Ustream and push to Justin. I don't do it on this show because I'm using your circuit for Skype. But I think as long as you're on separate circuits, you're okay. I just have a little 1x4 video splitter down here that splits the video out and feeds it. So um, I don't think I'm sure that Jim and those guys were well prepared to push a good stream to YouTube. Being it's the first time, but if you go to her YouTube page, you'll see that there's a new live button on top, and I thought that was kind of interesting. It doesn't show anything when you're not streaming, but um, I don't know. Just as a closing thoughts here, what do you guys think will happen if YouTube opens this up to everybody?
Well, I think live streaming is never going to be as big as on demand. So I think, just in a general sense, it's not going to be huge. Um, but I think it's going to grow, and it's its usage as it gets more available. And I think having this kind of stuff off of a YouTube site or even off of the area that I work on would be, I think it would be of help to our users to get to current information instead of having to wait. I mean, if you want to get a live stream from a content provider, I think it's you should have the option.
I think if you go over and look at these media elements that we're introducing for PowerPress and this RSS spec that we're expanding, I think if you read that document, you will see some very good insight into the mind of Todd, and there will show where we're going this year. And I'm pretty excited where this year could be heading, and w- it basically, well, I'm not even I can't say it. If I say it, it's a cat's out of the bag. But tech podcast will be on the forefront. Rob, you need to be streaming a show to get on the party wagon here.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, have you thought at all about having multiple um, video qualities in one feed? Have you thought about that as a possibility? So, like, if you have an on-demand file that's in, like a standard def and then a higher def version that would be in the same podcast feed?
Oh,
He's smirking.
you mean having multiple enclosures in the same feed?
Yeah, exactly.
The true RSS spec doesn't support it.
Oh, really? Huh.
Yeah, it's very much a something we could talk about. Maybe there should be some an elements in there that points to those other feeds. I don't know. There's got to be a way, but the current RSS 2.0 spec doesn't support more than one enclosure in a and it's really kind of you know basically all the infrastructure's been built for that.
Yeah,
So everyone would have to change. And
yeah.
I don't necessarily say that would be a bad thing, but
I mean, it'd be
Well,
tough to get everybody to change. Yeah. I
yeah,
mean,
when
and most content providers don't need to have that, but I just thrown it out there as a
yeah.
question for you.
I
when Blip pushes out their RSS, they have MP3, low end M4V, high end M4V, all the formats that you convert to
it's
in their
a
RSS.
It's an illegal feed. You look at what's being consumed by iTunes, and they consume the very first enclosure in the list.
Yeah. I totally agree. I think that all of the aggregator platforms would have to adjust,
Yeah,
but I mean, and the reason that I raised that topic was because there are more and more content providers out there that are putting out a audio version, a standard definition version, and an HD version.
right.
And to have three different series feeds in the catalog is really confusing
Yep.
to users about getting to the right file for the right playback
Experience. You're
device,
right.
right?
'Cause
So if you've got an HD version feed, that feed needs to be captured for playback on a television. If you have a standard def version, that's probably what you play on your phone. And if you just want to listen to the audio, then you have that choice instead of having to locate that in the catalog. It needs to be presented on one page or one experience, so it has so the user has the choice, and that's just my own comment and where I'd like to see podcasting get to. Right?
well, it's obviously very doable. It's easy to do. And setting up the additional feeds is easy to do. But
Yeah.
again, it adds more confusion to the consumer, and I don't know. There's no happy medium. If the industry would agree to allow more than one enclosure to be in a feed, and we'd say, okay, this is the execution date, I think that would be
Yeah.
great. But you're going to have Dave Weiner from scripting and all these guys. That I'm sure Dave is going to be seeing our RSS stuff, and he's probably going to make comments on it.
Yeah.
But we have got to move forward. There's just time is a wasting, and this is why we're introducing these new elements.
Maybe going the route of the wiki is the answer. I mean, with Leo, when he brings up a show, he ends up putting it into his wiki, and he's got an audio version. He's got the video version in there. Of course, he's got the full transcript in there, and everything else that comes with an episode of the show. But
Yeah,
how does that then aggregate into a feed?
yeah. Unless it's an RSS or OPML or some sort of a consumable XML, it's not. It's,
Yeah.
unless you go and build some platform that will, do Google's job and go through there and search the sites. I don't know. So this is what one of the things that we'll see how these new element adoption goes. We'll see what kind of response we get from the community. It's going to be curious. We'll see if negative comments start coming in. The podcasters are like, "Wow, congratulations, this is great." And of course, that they understand it. We'll see if the rest of the RSS people do. So, and this is a major expansion. I don't think anyone else has done as many elements as we have um, since probably the introduction of the iTunes elements. So we'll see.
So, Todd, have you had any discussions at all with Dave? And is there any effort current today that's operating around standards for the RSS spec at this point, or is the whole thing kind of in limbo
Well,
mode?
Dave has published it and said it is what it is, and if you want to expand it, you expand it with elements like we are, and he's doesn't. There's an advisory board for RSS now that he's not on. I don't foresee anything happening with the spec. Dave is Dave. He's got this. It turns into this damn turf war and
Yeah.
opinions, and he's had it out there long enough. I think that hopefully our way is going to be good, and we've done what iTunes did, was we basically said, here's our spec, and this is what we're going to be putting in place. We'll see how it goes. We're going to have an option to turn it off where PowerPress users don't have to use it, and we'll have some warnings in there what they could expect from a validation point until Feed Validator gets on board. But we as a company just can't wait, and we don't see any easier way to implement this in the way we do business. If we had our own platform where everyone was logged in and publishing through us, and we had 100% control of the media and all that stuff, it would be this wouldn't be needed. But that's not the business we're in. All right,
Yeah.
thanks, guys.
Thanks.
And we'll see you we'll see. I'll figure out what's going on next Saturday. I'm going to have a show. So everyone take care. And all of you that have tuned in, geeknews@gmail, you can send comments to me on the show. And we'll have some new stuff up on the website for you as well, so that you're able to find the show much easier if you want just the audio version of it. So I'll have that link up later today. We'll add that to the website. But until next week, everyone take care. And you guys take care as well. Thanks. And everyone else.
Thanks.
All right.
Aloha.
Take care.
Okay, stream is. Let me turn the stream off, and then we'll wait. Actually, I'm going to leave the stream up running. I'm going to put this thing in replay here just in a